I'm so impressed and happy to be here today. 3 years ago, I was like, in the room like you, and I'm so glad to see that this community keeps growing. And so today, let's get onto it. I'm going to show you how we moved from sales-led to product-led at AB Tasty. So as we're on the make better stage, I felt like I needed some bullet points and numbers. And so we're going to go through those topics. Basically, I'm going to try to define what are the different go-to-market strategies, then turn into our story, how we built Flagship, this product, which is product-led, and how that impacts basically the entire organization, the product experience, the process, the organization, and in the end, try to make it actionable for you guys to list all the checklists and key points for you to assess if you're ready to move to PLG as well. Because we believe that's the future. So, and finally, I'll cover the tech stack that we used to make this happen, measure and everything. Let's get started with defining what is PLG, what is SLG, what are all these go-to-market strategies. Everyone in this room probably knows the sales-led model. You're going to go to our booth, and you're going to meet with our sales guys. So is Mixpanel. So are all the SaaS leaders on the market. And so basically, sales-led is when you purchase through a human being, through a salesperson. Just for your information, the counter is not working. And so, the sales-led model is something we all know, something where, it can be frustrated when you get a salesperson who chases you and asks, when are you going to get ready to buy my software? When are you going to get ready to sign that contract? And we know it can be a lot of harassment sometimes. And those key companies that we know are sales-led, SAP, Oracle, those big guys. But also I try to put a B2C example here with Mercedes. I went to their website, tried to buy a car for fake. I don't want to buy a Mercedes, but I went there a couple of days ago, tried to buy the car, couldn't buy it. Went to Tesla, I could buy it actually, but you understand the issue. And then there's product-led. Product-led isn't new. It's a strategy that was born more, I would say, in the B2C world and came to the B2B world very recently. You see a couple of examples here, Slack, Atlassian, those companies where you can try the product, you can try before you buy. You don't have to talk to a human being. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. But anyway, this is you're in self-serve. You can do it yourself, and basically the customer acquisition is basically driven by product usage, and that's what I'll emphasize on today, obviously. Some say they, confront the two, and you're either or. I would say that you can be both. It's just that the product you choose to be product-led has to be wisely thought, and also has to be ready. Some actually, try to cross the fields and use the best of both worlds, but I think it's like, going to a Chinese restaurant and ask for a pizza. You cannot get, the best out of it. So I would suggest to choose one or the other. And as you know, some companies are founder-led. I worked in many companies where, the founder has a lot of ideas under the shower in the morning and was coming to me and saying, hey, JY, I had this great idea. Can we do this? Can we do that? And, you've seen a couple examples, here, with the famous Elon Musk, who asked on Twitter, do you want an edit button? That was a shocking tweet for me. But I understand it, and he's quite successful as well. So it works sometimes, and it's good to lead your team and show that you're very product-oriented. I think that's also good. So you may be wondering, am I working in a sales-led organization today? Well, a couple of things that will tell you if you're in a sales-led organization. Generally, there's a gong in the office. Someone hits the gong, and that's a good example of being a sales-led organization. Generally, it's where sales and marketing are king and queens, where they have a voice. They generally evolve faster in the organization. Hopefully, we see that product and tech get a seat at the exec table as well, and it's getting better. But in all these companies, sales and marketing are really prominent. And in terms of number, you can look at the numbers, and if your company is spending about 10 to 20% in product and engineering, there's a great chance that you're likely more of a sales-led organization. And if your company, on top of that, spends 40 to 50% of their budget in product and in marketing and sales, it means you're in a sales-led organization. It's not bad. It's just that in the future, you have to question yourself and question your managers and your top leaders. Is it sustainable in the long term? Because one of the things that led us to go product-led is because the cost of acquisitions keep rising. The cost of sales keep rising. The costs and the conversion rates are on there. It's in the sales-led model, it's between 1% to 2%. Is it? I mean, we're talking about. Amandine was talking about wastage and CO2 and carbon footprint. I think it's also something we should wonder. Is 1-2% satisfying? I think it isn't. My experience working in a sales-led organization, and I'm happy to be at AB Tasty to also move towards something else, which is more product-led. Working in sales-led organizations is, you always focus on the end of the month, the closing. You have to close that deal, and so we need that feature, we need that integration, we need that thing that will make the deal. And so, just like the animated GIF shows, it's many times, the feature is what sells. It's not always the case. I'm a strong believer that we should sell value and not features. Otherwise, you always end up in a fight between, feature lists and price. And that's not sustainable in the long term because you're always running after the latest feature that your competitors has. And something that doesn't develop a long-term relationship with your customers, it's not good. And so I've had that at many occasions, this $1 million deal, I want to sign that deal. And I estimate it's about $1 million, and you need that feature for that. So always running after the story. And I think it's not very good for product people. I didn't feel very comfortable in those organizations, to be honest. Always selling the future, Can you get to my big customer and present the roadmap? Can you, sell the future in some way? It's good because it reassures everyone, but overall, it's not sustainable. If we want to define what product-led is in a nutshell, it's basically a user-driven go-to-market strategy. So what's good is you focus everyone in the company on the user satisfaction. And we know in product how important that is. Having everyone, you're in marketing, you're focused on the users. Generally, they're more focused on the prospects. When you're in sales, you're focused on the user. How can they discover value? And you turn your prospects into users of the product and try to help them find value. And I think that's a more sustainable approach because we're in a bottom-up user world where users decide on which product and app they want to use. Just wonder every day, every app you chose, you were part of the process. You tested it, you trialed it, and it helped you really, choose the best product because, we don't have time to waste on products that don't make sense for us or don't work. And one of the things that I want to talk is product-led doesn't mean product manager-led. And that's very important because most of the people confuse product-led and product manager-led. It doesn't mean the product department drives everyone and rules the world. It means that basically everyone aligns on the user and the product. So that's quite important. So now is why did we turn to product-led? And I'm going to be talking about the creation of a new product, I know I have Arthur and a lot of my team in the room who participated heavily in creating that great product. And I will tell you the story of Flagship. Why did we build Flagship? A/B Tasty is a low-code, no-code app. You don't need to code. You can get to code when you try to create or A/B test very heavy, complex experiences, but more often you will use the visual editor, you will try to do it yourself, and we were basically targeting marketers, e-commerce managers, and these guys don't necessarily have access to developers and tech people, and it's hard for them. So we solved that problem by providing a tool that enables them to really do it themselves. But we were seeing more and more of our customers being product managers, developers, front-end developers, UX designers, and we're like, how can we satisfy the specificity of those jobs, knowing that I'm a product manager myself, and I know that I need a tool that actually adapts to my needs, and knowing that I have access to developers and working hand-in-hand in feature teams, squads, impact teams on a daily basis with developers, we needed to create a product that actually was made for them. So that was the first reason. The second one is when we interviewed a lot of our customers, they said, I want to be trialing that product myself. I don't want to talk to a salesperson. And I want to try before I buy. That's one of the main reasons why we went product-led as well. We also had a very low acquisition budget, and we had to build a brand from scratch because Flagship wasn't known at that time, and it was under the A/B Tasty umbrella, still is. And so we had a lot of challenges to tackle to be able to bring that new product to the market. And in the product team, we wanted to try that. And one of the things that actually struck me was I was listening to a podcast from Product-Led, productled.org. That's a great website, a lot of resources on product-led growth. And I was listening to a podcast from Alex Rosenblatt, who's VP Marketing at Datadog. And he was talking about their ability to expand, scale, grow really fast with a PLG and sales-led approach, where every customer actually tries the product themselves. They had a tech audience. They sell basically monitoring tools for tech and DevOps, and they were actually explaining how they were doing it. And one of the things that actually slowed me down in doing PLG for years is that we were actually addressing enterprise customers, those big names, and I was like, it's not for enterprise. And actually, Datadog was showing that enterprise customers were trying the product, and they had that PLG approach. And that was like the wake-up call for me. I said, we need to do it, right? And so that's how it started, basically. And in the first month, it's been hard. It's been hard for several reasons. One of the main reasons is we had to convince. I call it the Kodak syndrome, You want to sell digital cameras, the market is moving, that there is something there that you need to be doing with intuition, data, readings, and everything. And so I was, talking to people, still on their sales-led models, the marketing qualified leads, the sales qualified leads, and we had to convince. So we went through a round of presentations to stakeholders, to top management, trying to convince that, PLG is the way to go specifically for that product. And that took a lot of effort and still is in my day-to-day work, trying to convince all the time with results that PLG makes sense and provides good results. We also put together a dedicated squad with the best developers, 3 to 4 developers, Arthur as a product manager, and we went to create that first PLG version of the product. Then months 2 and 3, we implemented all the measurement framework because we knew that we had to look at the entire journey and funnel, and we had to measure everything. So measure all the actions, interactions from the users in that product. So we use Mixpanel. We also scored all the interactions with Sherlock. That's actually providing a score based on different events. I will talk about this later. And Salesforce integration. Then months 4 to 5 was more iterating through packages. There is also one thing that we did is on the packaging, how you package your product, which features, do you provide a free trial, do you provide a freemium approach? And I remember a conversation with the lead salesperson on Flagship, and she was trying to convince me that actually, I had to kill my free trial, I'm going after those big enterprise deals, 50, 60K dollars amounts, and your free trial provides too much value, you have to kill it. And so these are the ongoing conversations you have with those people, which, by the way, I enjoy working with. I love salespeople. I used to be a sales guy in my early days when I was in a business school. And so I understand that. But overall, I said, no, that's the way forward. And you have to keep doing that free trial. And we have to keep doing that version. But this is ongoing, and that's a tip. You have to remain strong. And so we had to convince also marketing to spend budget on that. Again, I remember a conversation with the lead marketing at AB Tasty saying, if I have 2,000 euros to spend on a lead, I know even though it will convert, 1 or 2%, I know because I know demand generation. I know, I know my funnel. I'm pretty sure I can make business with those $2,000 or euro investments. However, PLG, I don't know anything. There's a lot of uncertainty. We were just starting, so I didn't have any proof. So I had to convince on, removing some of this budget and move it to PLG. So we finally launched the freemium version, and I think we managed to do it. Now, a couple of takeaways for how that product-led impacts our product experience. As a PM, we changed the way we thought. Now we think self-service. Everything we think about is how can we make sure that we don't have to go through a customer success manager or any other person in the company making self-service. That's one important thing. Also, we were challenged with thinking about I call it the whole product. It's not just about your app, it's also about all the interactions that the users have with your documentation, with your support people, with everyone, every aspect of your product. So think holistically about what's around your product, like the API documentation, all that things that not necessarily mattered in the first place. Experimentation, of course, and we drink our own champagne, and so we experimented specifically also on packaging and personalization, because as a product manager, you have to think in terms of what is my user seeing? And that's even valid for B2C. More and more of our apps are driven by data, and how can we make sure that my users see what I think they see? And so personalization, testing, QA is becoming harder to do and longer, and so you have to automate and invest in there as well. It also PLG also impacted our product designers, because they have to design from the ground up what the experience will be with the in-app tours, with the product tours, with the helpers, with all these interactions that are really important and make the product better. And so they have to tackle with the different variations of the product. And here is an example of our Figma repository where there's a couple of examples. So you have more and more designs to make, more and more different designs to make, because you have to adapt to every different situation. And one of the things that is really important is eat feedback for breakfast. Is really, the fuel of PLG is the user feedback. So make sure that you have an input feedback management that is really, really good. How that impacted our product marketing? Well, our product marketing is owning all the tools and the interactions that happen in the product, upsell, cross-sell opportunities, and so they work within the product to make sure that we engage our users and we upsell and cross-sell our features. In terms of process and organization, I'm not going to go through the funnel, but overall it changed drastically our sales funnel. The sales-led model at the top, the value is found after the customer signed the contract. So you have a hard time really, ensuring that the customer is satisfied when they sign the contract. Whereas on PLG, it's really about finding value and finding that aha moment. We iterated a lot in trying to find the aha moment, what we call the activation point, to decide whether there was a valid, what we call product qualified lead, which is something that is valuable, and we can move the customer, the user, to a paid model. And finding that value in Flagship was actually the creation of an A/B test of a use case, implementing a use case. And so we were doing everything, investing in taking the customer to find that value. It changed also, PLG changed our foundations, to focus on users, speed and value, from top down to bottom up, focusing on the users, as I said, long cycles to short cycles. Professional, you have to go through a professional to set up the tool, whereas on PLG you set it up yourself, you do it yourself. Outbound and online, capability versus use case, you see the differences here. So it changed really drastically how we were thinking about the user journey. And so that user journey, we mapped it, we changed it as well several times. What's important here is that you have to take care about the journey where the customer is happy and buys, but also when the customer is unhappy, finds friction, and you try to iterate around removing that friction. But overall, we changed drastically the way we were mapping the user journey. A couple of examples also of the alerts that we set up. We set up a couple of alerts to finally turn the buying process into more real time. With salespeople, it takes months, quarters before you get a result. With PLG, you see that happen in real time, and so you get those alerts. And so you got to get ready to get a lot of alerts and set up the right level of alerts and notifications so that you know what's important for you. Here, we are being alerted when the users actually hit a given activation score. We also get alerted when there's a new free trial. So that's where also conversations can happen with your internal staff, with everyone, and you can all focus on that opportunity all together using Slack here in that case. But that was really interesting to see all these interactions happen based on those alerts. We also changed the way we were actually measuring the usage. A couple of examples of the KPIs we were following: hitting the quota, clicking a CTA, et cetera, So there's quite a few things that we worked on. Here an example of the ability to follow the pipeline within Mixpanel and in Sherlock as well for each user. So you have to set up your entire stack so that you can follow that really carefully. Are you ready to move to product-led? I would love to speak about that after the conference. If you want, I'll be there. And so I put together a couple of things. One, the company strategy. You have to ensure your leadership team buys PLG. That's critical, like for everything, but mainly for PLG. You have to make sure you have the right data and technology infrastructure to follow, measure, and be able to do it well. You have to organize your design. You have to ensure you have some budget for acquisition as well with your marketing team. Activation and conversion as well. You have to be able to onboard your users really easily. Monetization. Think about the pricing, how you're going to split your different plans, and customer support as well as retention and expansion. So all these things, you have to tick the box and say, if all those boxes are ticked, then you're probably going to get ready. If not, there's a bit of work you'll have to invest into making sure your product is ready for PLG, and that was an investment we made for the first 3 months at AB Tasty. Now a word on our PLG stack. We used Microsoft Clarity for the session replays. We're able to see what users do in the app with Microsoft Clarity, also heat maps and click maps. Using Mixpanel for product analytics, following the user journeys, product tour performance as well. We see that if the product tour is being used and if it's actually valuable, adoption and usage KPIs as well. Metabase for internal BI tool to slice and dice the data, add up Salesforce data onto it. Sherlock was a great discovery because it helps us really score the user based on their interaction in the app. Was really great. App queues for onboarding. So creating the onboarding tours is based on app queues, and that works really well. We started actually 6 months ago, this one, and it proves to be really good. And that's driven mainly by product marketers at AB Tasty. And obviously, as I said, we're drinking our own champagne, so we use AB Tasty to convey messages within our own apps. So that's like a bit Inception, using our own tool within our tool. And Flagship for feature management to deploy the features gradually to the users, to be able also to feature flag. If you have plans, you have to deactivate features. We use Flagship for that as well. So using our own tool for our own use, and that's really working well. And a couple of other tools like Intercom, Beamer, README for the tech docs segment, Salesforce, and Slack. So a couple of key learnings that I put together. One is product-led is just a fantastic growth engine. You have to invest in it. It's the future. It's the present, and no wonder you have to go through that. You have to evangelize. As I said, it's really critical. You need an acquisition budget. Again, you can't go without. The product itself is not enough. You need to attract people to your product, obviously. You have to adapt your product to PLG if it's not, and that's what we did. With that experience, we're looking at the no-code, low-code product, and we're looking at ways to make it PLG as well. We have discussions right now on that. Measurement is key, and focus on user satisfaction, which has a tremendous amount of positive impacts in the company, because that aligns everyone on one thing, satisfying the user, whether you're in marketing, sales, or anywhere. User is king, and that's PLG is providing that, and tooling, as you could see. Thank you. I hope it's actionable, and there's 5 minutes left for the questions, so I think we're pretty good in there. Thank you.
So yes, thank you very much. Many of insights there. We just have a couple of minutes for questions, a lot of questions, so please be around to answer them directly right after. The first one is the top voted. What's your advice for businesses where the buyer is not the user?
Okay, well, that's our case. In sales-led, a lot of the times the buyer isn't the user. And so the bet and the challenge we have in PLG is that you have and I'm going to tell you a story. Basically, when you go to any enterprise customer these days, I haven't come across any CDO, CPO, whatever the C-level name is, that isn't saying, I'll buy the software because my users say it's good, or because my developers say it's good. So to answer the question, I think there's no tool where you can't now satisfy just the buyer. If you're just focused on the buyer, and these are the guys who sign the check, and then the users are different, and it's a top-down approach where you push that to the users, the product will not be, I can bet that they will not renew, because the adoption of the product, the usage is really key in renewing, adopting, buying software these days. So I would say if you're focusing just on the buyer, not good. Focus on the users as well.
Yes, thank you for the answers. Another one, what was your best argument to convince sales to go to PLG?
My best argument was, it's a tool that you can use to qualify your priorities. So if you're in sales, there's likelihood that a lot of your leads don't have any project, and you waste your time. You go after someone who's not interested, and so on. Here, with PLG, you can take the PQL, the product qualified lead, and you have someone who is convinced by the product, found value, and I wouldn't say you have just to sign the contract and go and say, basically, it's a one-slide presentation. Your users are doing this. This is the value they brought. Here's the contract. So it makes life easier for the sales guy, and they should see it as a complementary tool and valuable tool to be focused on what matters and prioritize. So that's the argument I would give.